How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the James Loud Podcast. And today my special guest is Jason Brooks, one of my good friends from Colorado. We've known each other since about 2013, Denver at the Cup. We met in line when I was waiting to get in.
That's right. Yep, totally. Yeah, so, man, that's when you're at the peak of your high times experiences. And
yeah,
I've been caught up in the chef world for a long time at that point. Cannabis had just become legal in Denver and the medicinal side of things. And so I was really focused on being a chef at that time, but I was still picking up high times every once in a while. And I remember seeing you quite a bit in there.
Yeah.
Walking into the show, I kind of got a little fanboy. I remember I was like, "Hey, dude, that's James Loud. Like, what's up, man?"
Dude, it was an amazing time for cannabis in general. And then I could tell you were passionate about weed, and you'd see me in high times, and I had extra wristbands, and I think we became friends over that wristband.
Absolutely.
And got you in the show, and then we hung out, and then you invited me to your farm because you were working at a farm too at the time.
Yeah, we had the big 43,000 square foot under glass in Lafayette, Colorado. So it was 1 acre under glass.
Yeah.
Pretty sure it was the biggest operation in Colorado at the time.
It was a spectacle too. And I think a lot of people had never seen, that was a big grow back then. It was pretty amazing and impressive. And I think you guys struggled in a lot of ways too. Like in the beginning, whoever, starting out, there's always struggle in trying to figure out and navigate how you do it when you go to scale like that.
Absolutely. The craziest part was we found that property, and I believe they were growing carnations back in the 80s before they moved the cut flower business down to South America.
Yeah.
So we found the property, and there was literally mockingbirds' nests in the roofing of the greenhouse. It was completely naked. There was, no skins on the greenhouse. It had no heat. It had, terrible water. The soil had been polluted from the years of chemical flower production.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much everything. Learning the building, completing the grow, the build out. And this is kind of before there was just a dude you could pick up the phone and say, "Hey, man, I need a greenhouse." Of course, there's like Farm Tech and guys like that.
Sure. Those guys jumped in, but it wasn't obvious, and it wasn't apparent. You didn't jump on the internet, and it wasn't like that now, like it is now.
No, you had to really take some time, sit in the office, and dig it out and find that help. Find the person that was willing to work with you. Even when it came down to testing genetics, I was running up plants to CSU and getting chased out of the university by people that were like, "Get that cannabis off the property." They wouldn't even work with you that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was your first experience with cannabis?
My first experience with cannabis was just like an after-school special, man. Like, it really was. My best friend, I'll keep his name quiet because he works for the government at this point. He's got some kind of secret whatever past stuff he can't get in trouble with. But it literally was like that. Like, his uncle came in town, left some weed behind. We went around the side of the house. We smoked a little bowl. I was 15 years old. It was kind of at the time I was down in South Florida, so a lot of my friends were starting to experiment with alcohol and stuff like that. And I quickly realized it was pretty apparent when you were drunk versus, you could smoke a little weed and maybe your eyes got a little red, but you were still coherent and you were still with it.
Depending on how much back then.
Depending on the quality, It was a little pre-crippy, we started off with some swaggy stuff, but moved quickly into the crip. But it went along really well with my skateboarding and my surfing and stuff like that. So
nice.
Yeah, stuck with it.
So let's talk about the crippy. Your experience with the crippy. So we had Mango on here, and we've had some other people from Florida, and crippy was pretty much all the good stuff, right?
Yeah, that was it. It was kind of a loose term for kind bud, Most of the time it was homegrown. There was some dudes down there that were really cranking it out. I just remember meeting people randomly, at the beach or something like that. And they're like, "Oh, you smoke weed?" And then invite that guy to the party. And that guy would show up with an igloo cooler full of the same cola of crippy, sea of green crippy. And it taught me really quick, flavor is everything in cannabis. If you're going to do something, especially highly illegal at the time, it might as well taste good and make you feel good. So that was kind of
well, and I feel like it's one of those things, if you've never experienced it, you don't know what good weed tastes like. You don't know what you're missing. And then the second you taste it, whether it's at a young age or whether it's older, then you realize the contrast between everything else and then the good stuff.
Absolutely. Yep. And I would say that experience in life really paved the road to me becoming a chef.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, everybody eats all day long, but are you putting quality in your mouth? What are you doing?
Right.
So yeah, that it definitely was a big influence on.
It has a huge, like working in the kitchen has so much, as far as so much in common with cannabis. Like those two fields, I feel like they're both passion driven fields. Like I think a lot of people see the financial aspect or did in the past of cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also people watch TV and they're like, oh, these celebrity chefs, and it's like all glammed out. And that's not the real kitchen. You know, that's not the real world as you know, and it's like, but there is like water boys and dishwashers have a lot in common. You know, it's like
absolutely.
And I think it's valuable to learn all those things together. It's amazing how many similarities there are, and then palate wise too. Like I feel like that's where I develop. I develop my palate from both. You know, I feel most of us that worked in the kitchen, it's like it's all from collecting data points, right? So like the more data points you have over time, the more developed your palate is, and the more things you experience, you figure out what you like, what you don't like, and then at a certain point, you can figure out what other people like too. I feel like that's one of the things that makes cooking special too. It's not always about what you like, but understanding what everybody likes or what most people would like going in there, what they would be impressed with, or you know, add to the experience. Because at the end of the day, it's all about an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for a restaurant to be successful, there has to be some form of a mass appeal. You know, something's got to hit and resonate with everyone. And I think that's where you get certain strains of cannabis that become legendary for a long time. You know, like the Crippy down in the South, Blue Dream out here in Cali. You know, like those things hit and they resonated for a long time.
Well, the Crippy somehow turned into OG Kush. Right. But it was Crippy was kind of encompassing, but then it emerged as the OG Kush cut that we know today as OG Kush, which is like that earthy, piney gas.
Totally. Yeah, I think that was, you know, the successful growers in Florida that were able to attract a little bit of gravitas and attention. And, you know, they got the West Coast people paying attention, and they were able to come out here and make OG like a California thing, you know, like I don't think of OG as, or like Crippy's Florida, but OG is California. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks to Snoop Dogg, Ricky Palomino,
Cypress Hill,
all those guys. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So and those guys were pushing the envelope in public. You know, it's pretty impressive.
Absolutely. But yeah, the cool thing about cannabis for me, man, is it just, I mean, it's brought my best friends into my life. It brought my wife into my life. You know, I was running around Athens, Georgia for a little while in the 90s. We were selling swag to buy good bud, you know?
Yeah.
And we actually got to a point where we were making enough money that we rented Bon Jovi's tour bus and his driver to take us down to the Dead shows.
Oh, wow.
From Athens to Atlanta in 95. And that's where I met my wife, man, on a Grateful Dead lot, you know? Like, I was like, hey, you want to get on the bus and come check it out? And she got on the bus and never got off, you know? So, yeah.
And that was in the mid 90s, 93,
that was April or March 31st, 95.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's funny how the Grateful Dead has so much influence over, or not even influence, but impact on the industry. I think the cannabis industry wouldn't be what the cannabis industry is without the impact from the Grateful Dead. And so many of us have stories that revolve around either the lot or around the genetics that came from there.
Absolutely.
You know, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, like in Athens, you know, like as soon as the kids left town after school got out, typically there was a huge drought all through the summer.
Yeah.
And that's where like summer tours of the Grateful Dead coming through would absolutely save the summer. You know, like you'd load up on your glass, you load up on your mushrooms, you load up on your, you know, your jars of weed and
totally
try to make it through, you know, pinch it through until everything came back around in the spring, you know?
Right.
But that's why I started growing is because I was like, what this is a plant. Why are we running out of it? You know, if we can just grow it, let's grow it.
So when did you start growing?
Let's see. My first plants were in high school, 1994. There was a window in my basement. I planted a bunch of plants in my window, and I actually went away on a little trip. I came back home, and all my plants were sitting on the kitchen table. And my parents were basically like, you know, you said this was basil. And I have a really cool uncle, and he was like, that's not basil, you know. So he blew my cover, but it all worked out well because I was able to, you know, I graduated from high school and then went up the road to Athens. The first plant I was gifted was a mother plant of Big Bud in 1996.
Oh wow!
It was huge. This thing had been topped forever. I mean, it probably had 50 tops on it when I got it. It showed up in one of the big old school TV boxes. You remember TVs used to be,
they used to be
square.
Actual square box.
Now they're flat.
Yeah.
But it took up the whole thing. And one of my good buddies was like, we need a grow light. And, back then you couldn't just go to the grow store. So, or you had to go to the electrical shop and build one. And that was outside of my realm of knowledge.
Right.
So we stole one from my community college, it was like a 400 watt HPS or something like that,
Right.
When the light was on also, like, like could have lost a good friend in that process, but we didn't. And yeah, that thing went into a closet and,
what doesn't kill you?
right? only makes a career.
Right.
But yeah, man. So that was the first plant. It was pretty good. I mean, it was 90s big bud. So
yeah,
it was impressive. The smoke wasn't all that great, and then I got into, it was still Georgia in the 90s. So a lot of penalties to be paid if you got caught.
Yeah.
So mostly guerrilla growing and stuff like that. I remember my dad sitting down at the kitchen table and being like, I don't know whose plants those were in the woods, but they just had crop failure. It's like, oh, geez. Like trying not to react at the dinner table,
Oh, man.
Yeah. But yeah, man, I grew all the way. So yeah, the Athens thing went good for a while till it didn't. We actually had we had a federal thing happen, and one of my buddies, kind of my best friend at the time, started wearing a wire, and actually,
ouch.
Yeah, it was a weird time. Everybody's houses started getting kicked in, and we didn't know what was going on, But it was kind of strange. My best friend at the time, like the guy that had all the weed and the best weed, all of a sudden didn't have any weed, and he was asking us for weed, and things just got weird,
Yeah.
But one by one, they all got in trouble, and I don't really know exactly because I didn't ever talk to any officers about it.
Yeah.
But I guess I was so low on the totem pole, I think they had who they wanted.
Yeah.
So
they usually go for the big fish.
Yeah, that's kind of, especially back then, it's like get them, hit them hard.
Yeah, I mean, they hit people hard.
They hit people hard, man. Yeah, a lot of my friends, like their parents had to put their houses up to keep their kids out of jail, and like just stuff like that. And
oh yeah, they'd seize property too.
Seize property, and yeah. So
asset forfeiture sucks.
It's I mean, the road has been so weird. But that's what sent me to culinary school. I was like, I got to learn a trade. I need to get out of this and get into something else. And
yeah.
So I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta and learned to become a chef. And
nice.
Yeah.
And then did that for a while.
Did that forever, man. And I was drinking the Kool-Aid, man. I was like, I'm not doing anything else besides being a chef.
The beauty of being a chef is you're a chef forever. Once you learn how to cook, it just changes your life. It's just like learning how to grow, though. I feel like
absolutely.
Once you understand the plant, once you understand the kitchen, and there's a formula to it, and everybody makes their own formula up as you go along. You learn things and you pick up things from different cultures, but you understand how food works together. And it's an amazing thing to be able to just kind of create. And there's an artistic side to it too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's cool. Like, culinary school gives you the intros and the hows and the whys. And then once you learn that, it's kind of like all cuisine's pretty much the same. You just have a different set of ingredients to work with. And, yeah, same with cannabis, same with growing, like I instantly realized like, I didn't want to work at a Chili's. I didn't want to cook something out of a bag and pour it in and call that soup of the day. Yeah. Like that wasn't me. And that approach worked for me in cannabis too. I was like, I'm not a hydro guy. Like I don't want to take part A, part B, and then throw in some C and then call it my creation. I don't think that's no shame on anybody doing it. It's just not me. I like to I made this input and I put that input onto
from the ground up both ways. Yeah. And
yeah.
When it reflects in your flour too. Like
it
at the
does.
End of the day, yeah, you got some good flour. You've grown. Yeah, I love smoking. Thanks, every time I go to Colorado, that's one of the places I look forward to going to.
I always love to see you show up, man, and show you what I've been working with.
For sure.
But it was that big flood we had in Colorado when I was running that greenhouse. We had a huge flood come through, and I think it's 10 years ago, September.
Yeah.
But it literally cut my town in half. Like we had to drive all the way around just to get to town. But my greenhouse. I remember waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and turning on the news and seeing that Lafayette was underwater. And I jumped in my truck at 5 o'clock in the morning and drove to that greenhouse. And it's like an episode of Ghost Hunters, like the trash cans floating across the room. It's just the kitty cat that we had, Durbin, was all the way in the rafters. Like he was hiding out. But because of that, it locked up the ground so bad. And we were in the ground or trying to be as organic as possible.
Yeah.
But we couldn't grow anything. Like we were getting every kind of anything you could imagine. Like if it was fungal based, it was in the soil. I mean, it was just anything.
Just a nightmare to deal with.
It was almost like a bad Bugs Bunny cartoon. Like when all the carrots start disappearing, going down the row.
Right.
We'd water a plant and it would die. We'd water a plant and it would die. So we had 2 or 3 growers at the time, and we all kind of, we're headbutting a little bit on things. But every time we put chemicals into the soil, it was worse. Like salt-based stuff would kill things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I got to know Brian from Vital.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like Carl Gorka from Photosynthesis Plus Microbe-Life. Like,
yeah,
I started reaching out to all these organic guys, and I was like, hey, like how do we stop this? And Brian's answer was compost tea, and I was like, okay, I'm with that. I brought in a master horticulturist. He was like, compost tea. I was like, okay, all right, now we're getting somewhere. So we started bringing in better supplies. We couldn't water anything because as soon as water hit the ground, it locked up everything.
Wow.
So we started foliar feeding compost teas, and we turned that grow around. I mean, we still got a crop in. If I remember correctly, I think I watered the crop 1 time in 90 days. And everything else is foliar. And
wow.
Dude, we had Jurassic leaves on these plants. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see the connection here, And so, through the organics, I learned about probiotics, which brought me to Alan Atkinson and Grokashi. Using his products and then watching everything change, watching the soil change, watching the composition of the soil change, watching the pH of the soil change.
Right.
And like, I guess my point is like, feeding cannabis in that situation taught me how to feed myself. I was like, why am I not drinking coconut water? Why do I not take aloe? Like, why do I not eat probiotics?
Totally.
And I was just coming out of my chef, career, which they tell you in culinary school, like fat is flavor, like anytime you can throw more butter in there, hit it with some cream, like it.
I don't believe fat's the problem, just personally. But I think, but I do love it. And I think it's a good energy. So I think the problem right now today with people's eating is that they're eating processed foods.
Totally.
I think butter's okay.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, butter's okay. I think exercise and eating raw ingredients is the most important thing.
I think so too. And like now I understand like through like fermented products, like your kimchis and your kombuchas and your sauerkrauts. Like
totally.
Now we're looking at KNF, right? And it's
exactly.
like these guys are just fermenting things and micronizing those things and applying them straight to the plant. The plant's eating itself, or the plant's eating whatever it wants to eat.
Right.
When we're doing that, eating the fermented stuff, everything's micronized for us. It's easier for our bodies to uptake. It's good for our body pH.
Yeah.
It's very similar. I actually just read an article about how similar the root system is in soil versus our gut system and our microbiota. And one of the cool takeaways from the article was, like if people have like surgeries and stuff like that, and their probiotics completely shut down, like, and they're basically dying of like diarrhea and dysentery.
Yeah.
There's a fecal transplant that you can do, where you actually take somebody's
good. It doesn't sound like what it is. You're basically eting a pill, right?
It's eating a pill, but it sounds
I have
gnarly.
Ulcerative colitis, so I know all about these things.
There you go.
Yeah, that's why I do cold plunge.
There you go. So, but I read in this article that a compost tea is just like doing a fecal transplant for the soil, which totally made sense to me. I was
Absolutely.
like, oh, okay, so. Yeah, it's just like when things aren't right, you take what is right and apply it in, and then let the symbiotic process occur,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a trip. And we're starting to learn so much more science about like GI issues and also about cannabis all at the same time. Science is just kind of, there's a lot of stuff we knew, but we're learning a lot of stuff, I think, especially about eating things that aren't sprayed with pesticides.
Dude, totally. And when I was saying like fat is flavor, like there's a big difference between like grass-fed beef butter, like grass-fed butter or whirl.
Canola oil,
like I've worked in places that are like grab the whirl and put it on the green beans. You're like, what the fuck is whirl? And it's just some crazy oil, some hydrogenated oil that tastes like butter, and like it's made for a buffet. So your butter never breaks,
It's cheap butter.
It's cheap butter.
Yeah,
but that's kind of stuff that I was looking at, and
it's the spice of butter.
It is.
like,
yes.
Like how spice is to cannabis.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Trip.
But yeah, man. So it became like, I realized quickly the best way to raise, and if you can, I know it's not for everybody, but the best way to raise cannabis in my book is to feed it organically.
Yeah.
And, I do shop at Whole Foods. I eat mostly organic food. Strictly
whole
organic.
paycheck.
Yeah,
Yes.
whole paycheck.
Whole
Exactly.
paycheck.
Yeah, they were freaking me out the other day when you can check out with your palm now. Have you seen that?
I know, it's really weird.
I'm like, I think I'll skip that tech, but I
Right.
appreciate your celery juice.
Yeah. Blood sample. No big deal. Finger prick.
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting, and how these things relate, and there's so much crossover,
Totally.
in life, and then with your family, and then you're raising your kid on these things, and
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I know my wife thinks I'm crazy because I'm always, like if I cook rice, then I'm shaking it in rice water and I'm making my own labs. There's always a project on my counter.
Yeah.
Like right now, I know there's a huge thing of garlic fermenting and honey on the counter. But no, it does become a lifestyle. And I think you're right. The problem that's going on right now is, we're sending our kids off to school with heads full of sugar and artificial colors and then they can't concentrate at school, and then it's your kid's fault, and then you get mad at the teacher for not engaging your kid. And it's like, no, like feed your kid whole foods and you teach your kid how to grow. I think that's what's really cool. Like,
stop the disconnect. Teach your kids how to grow.
Right.
I think also, like, if you're a meat eater, vegetarian, whatever, that's fine. But like, if you eat meat, you should understand the process of how animals come to end up on your plate.
Absolutely.
And I love the whole process of all that stuff.
I do too.
And understanding. But all these things are lost art.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, I would love, since I'm in Colorado, I'd love to embrace more hunting and stuff like that, and always have like a full freezer of some good elk and stuff to go to.
Yeah, elk's my favorite.
So
I like a lot of different kinds of meat. I like bear jerky too.
Bear's great. I shot a big old bear and we made some stew out of it. It was
awesome.
It was interesting.
Yeah, it works. And bear can vary so much from animal to animal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's kind of what they're eating on and stuff like that. You can get the trash bear out of
pretty much all animals. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But no, yeah, cannabis has taught me how to feed myself completely. And there's really not much difference between like the amount of salt we can take, well, and
salt and what we think of as salt, like for us, it's like there's different types of salt too. It's like, there's table salt, which is very linear, and then there's sea salt,
right,
which is very complex,
right. And then there's all the components also, like magnesiums and all those other things, and like
they're all in
those plants. We know like growing cannabis is all about your micronutrients, and same. Like that's gotten me every morning taking a little Celtic sea salt and dropping it under my tongue, and
for sure
getting all my good vitamins in that way.
Right.
So again, she's the one, man. She's the goddess. She's like the number one woman of the world. You know what I mean? Like, I personally think it's really hard to wrap around my head that like an orange could taste like cannabis, or a cannabis can taste like orange, but a cannabis can also taste like any other thing. Like Green Dot Dave's got the A5 Wagyu out right now. Yeah. And if you haven't tried that, it's a greasy, meaty, it's an experience,
Yeah, I've had some fried chicken terps before.
Fried chicken terps for sure. Yeah. Like that lemon G.
That lemon G, I don't know if I got the lemon G from you. I got it from someone in Colorado, but that lemon G is fire.
It's so fire, but it's also got like a funky fried chicken gas station, like bathroom in an Alabama gas station where they fry their own chicken terp. Yeah. Like you're back there.
It's borderline offensive. Yeah.
Yeah. And it really comes through in the concentrate too. Like
I love borderline offensive too. Though. Yeah. You grow a lot of borderline offensive weed.
I do.
Your GMOs and your chems. The 91 Chem Dog, that was one of the best expressions I've ever had of Chem Dog.
Thank you.
Was what I smoked that you grew.
You. Well, man, my Rhino gig led me to hang out at Elite Cannabis. They kind of brought me in as a consultant because they were moving into the hemp fields. And so we needed a little, I wanted to help them with a little bit more production stuff. And dude, that was the most loaded bench of growers I've ever gotten to hang out with. We had Graham from Crickets and Cicada. We had Duke Diamond. We had Jamie, who's famous for the headband. We had a dude named Jack Love, Matt Fordyce, Dave Von Villain, which, he's a gangster himself. I don't know if you've kept paying attention to his painted guitars and stuff he's doing now.
Nice.
The dude got to go on Slayer's world tour, the last tour.
Wow.
As their weed tech, taking all the weed that we grew around the world with Slayer.
That's funny.
It's badass. And then, somehow he became Kerry King's guitar tech, like through the tour.
Yeah, that's wild.
But yeah, man, this group of growers that I got to hang out with every morning. We started work at 7:00, which meant smoking OG at like 7:15 and drinking coffee. And then we would leave the table at like 10:30.
Coffee is the balance, though.
Higher than giraffe pussy. You know what I mean? Just like way up there. And then like, okay, let's get to work. And then it's like, let's get to lunch.
Right.
But the information that I gathered from all those guys, and this is a couple years back. So it's like a lot of bro science still, but
sure.
The experience.
But pushing to figure it out so we could get to where we are today. I feel like it takes a lot of trial and error. A lot of people don't understand because we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and these are such big giants that we don't even really see the work that they've done necessarily.
Yep.
But like the work's been going on for 40, 50 years, really, and then even 2,000 years in the making. But we're standing on the shoulders of some amazing giants, and there's a lot of trial and error to get to where we are today, to get funneled into gelato.
You're right, dude. You're right. I just grew some outdoor runts this year in Colorado, and I was like, I see why it's got, its good reputation. It's delicious. But I
totally love the appeal of some of this stuff, and I totally love the flavor, but I also love diversity. And I think that comes from the chef background too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cannabis is not just like sitting around getting stoned for me. It's like, okay, what's going to start my day? Yeah. Get my processes going, whether it's get my exercise in, get the dog out for a walk, like just make a list, whatever it is. And then there's like the midday stuff. And then like, once I'm done working, like I'm 47 now, man, my body hurts, so I'm ready to like,
I feel you.
Smoke some of that dog walker or something like that. That's just going to put me in the couch and put me, in a good space, getting ready to.
Gets you relaxed at least. I feel like stimulants are good in the daytime, the sedative stuff at night.
Sure.
But I have like things like OG Kush where I can smoke them day or night. Skittles, another one I smoke it in the morning, I smoke it at night.
Yep.
It's interesting, and I'm constantly changing what I'm smoking, and probably smoking whatever the best shit I have is what I smoke first.
Yep. Totally. Yeah. I think I have built up a tolerance for all the chems and all the OGs, so I can still function. But I personally like to be a little scared when I'm done smoking weed. Like there's something about it that just, I don't know. It like brings me close. Yeah, it brings me more. I'm more attentive actually to like everything around me, hypersensitive almost, but not in a bad way, not in a paranoid way, but just like
no, but where you can be comfortable in that borderline place. Like that's kind of how mushrooms work too.
Yeah,
like once you get like at first, it's like it can be borderline, like not microdose. Well, I'm not talking about microdose, but I'm talking about like a real dose, like we grew up doing, and I think
right.
Now everyone's on the microdose kick, but like technically you get the most benefit from doing the larger doses of mushrooms. And it is borderline scary. And then once you learn how to relax, then you can really appreciate everything it has to offer.
Yep. Yeah. Mushrooms are amazing like that. Last time I had one of those trips was about 1.5 years ago, and it was 3.5 grams of this Brazilian strain that my buddy grows. And instead of lemon tech, I did grapefruit tech. And,
nice.
I'm like, okay, I heard it works better, whatever.
Yeah.
So I made this little grapefruit thingy, and it was 3.5 grams. And then I blended it into this tiny little grapefruit margarita. It was a little tiny tequila and a little tiny Grand Marnier. And it was a shot.
Yeah.
And I shot that thing down. And by the time I could clean the blender, I was having like DMT visuals. Like I don't know what was going on, but yeah, it hit me so hard. It was the strongest trip. And I was thinking back, I'm like, there's no way I could be in a public setting right now. Yeah. I mean, I felt like I was DNA going through somebody's like bloods. Like
probably were.
probably was. But yeah, man, it was awesome. And but I do microdose a lot. I do microdose like 5 days a week. Try to take a couple of days off.
I think you were the first person to get me on microdoses, to be honest. You gave me some pills in Denver one time that had a whole bunch of different mushrooms, including
the 15 mushroom blend.
Yeah, it was like the 15 mushroom blend. And those were like real microdose too. And they were like, you weren't taking them to get high, you were taking them for the mushroom benefit.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. Yep. Yeah, so, I think, like everybody's got their traumas and stuff like that. And, the more I learn about the brain and like, concussions and stuff like that, like I did surf, I skateboarded, I played a little bit of football, I've taken some, and I fought. I used to be a fighter, so I've taken some shots. And now that I'm in my 40s, I'm like, okay, we got to protect this noodle, because I'm looking at the next 40 and I don't want to be, useless as far as my brain or my vocabulary and stuff like that. So I spend a lot of time trying to rebuild those things, and I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, I talk about cold plunge a lot. I'm a huge cold plunge fan, and I do these longer plunges now, which is like goes against a lot of stuff you read, but I feel like you got to listen to your body and give your body what it wants.
Mm-hmm.
And I do days where I do 15-minute plunges now.
Oh my God.
And so, Joe Rogan did like 20, and then Rick Rubin, he did like a 30. He says he did a 30, but I saw Joe Rogan's 20-minute plunge.
Jeez.
And so I realized that anything's possible. You just listen to your body. And if it's too much, like as you're building it up, you don't go past that. I didn't go past 5 minutes for the longest time.
I think 3 minutes and 30 seconds has been about.
It depends on the temperature too. So I get a little warmer temperature so I can go for longer, but you get in more of like a meditative state. Like I feel like it's you're in a different state of mind, especially with the cold. Like then you start breathing through it and relaxing. You're in the moment too because you're cold.
Yeah, for me, the very first initial plunge it's pretty ugly. I'm like not in control of my vote. I'm like, like yeah. It takes
I do it every day now too.
Oh,
so
wow.
I do it every
That's
day,
awesome.
First thing in the morning, right when I get out of bed. So I'm not really thinking about it, and then you're hot from sleeping.
Yeah, your body.
So then when you get in,
rises.
it's almost like going in the sauna.
That's cool.
But
I need to get one for my house. I live in Colorado, so cold plunge can literally be just run outside in the winter, jump in the snow.
You just literally at this time of year, you could probably just put a trough out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like a baby pool, and just go crack the ice and jump in there. But I was thinking like the past couple of years have been the year of the cold plunges. So
yeah,
I was like, maybe I'll just wait and see what pops up on Craigslist and just snag one
absolutely.
on the cheap.
You can buy the $10,000 ones on the internet, or the Morozco, which I think is badass. It's $10,000.
Yeah,
but then you can make one for $2,000 that works just fine. And if you're in a cold enough region, I'm so worried about balancing out everything like chemical wise, because if you don't do it right, you can get bacteria infections and die.
Yeah, that's the other thing I worry about, kind of doing it by yourself or like fainting, from like holding your breath or not,
Well, okay, so this is the thing.
Like
when I first started doing it, I'm like, what if I have a heart attack? That was kind of like going through my head the first time I did it. And I used to dump ice, and I did it. We had a jacuzzi tub, and I go in the jacuzzi tub, and it was super cold. But after a week, you start realizing, like, even not doing it every day, you start realizing that you're fine. And now, even at the cold temperatures, I can go in them and I don't feel like I'm going to faint. Like you feel a little lightheaded at first, but like it's all about breathing and knowing that you're safe. I think that's doing it regularly. You develop that too, where you realize that you're safe, even if you're going extreme.
Yeah, it really is amazing, the power of breath in your brain. And if you connect those two, my yoga teacher back in Colorado, she's like, watch how fast your heart changes when you focus on your breathing, and like, or just how your shoulders settle, and
everything. Your face is tight. You relax your face, all those things. And it's like,
all of a sudden you realize your tongue's not pressing against the top of your throat all the time, like relax.
Well, and time really slows down when you're doing cold plunging. My day goes by like this. I mean, it seems like I wake up and I'm doing all these things, and then the next thing you know is the next day.
That's awesome.
And I think part of that's getting older, but also we can look at life in perspective. But that small amount of time in the morning, whether it's 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, it's not 15 minutes every day, but I've been doing like building up to the 15 minutes.
That's still very impressive, man. Like that's a lot.
But yeah, so like it really slows life down. And then I don't drink coffee first thing in the morning either. I feel like gives me what I need to wake up and I'll drink coffee in the afternoon, or if I smoke a bunch of weed and then I'm like, I feel a little tired. But coffee is the balance. I love coffee. I love the way it makes me feel. And
coffee and cannabis, I feel like those two are meant to go together. Like
chefs and coffee, working as a chef,
and coffee,
dude, it's like, yeah, I mean, we're working long hours. Like coffee is just part of the job. And then with cannabis, it kind of balances. It used to be with drinking and being a chef.
Yes.
Now it's like growing weed and making seeds and everything. And then like smoking weed all day, you got to have the coffee to kind of balance it.
Yeah, for sure. I have appreciated getting older and not having such a like crazy head of steam, like when you're younger, it's just like, all right, dude, put your head down and plow through everything. And
right.
Getting older is definitely like, okay, like separating things and taking time to listen to your body and heal your body. And, it's not all go these days, I got to have some downtime.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because there's different ways of doing stuff in life. And I feel like part of the chef mentality is, because you're working so fast and you're only as good as your last plate to a degree.
Absolutely.
Right. So like you have to make snap decisions, and you have to be right the first time every time.
Yep.
Right. And the thing is like, yeah, you make mistakes and you learn from your mistakes, but eventually, like in the restaurant, because it's repetition time and time again, you learn how to navigate through those. So like you can correct mistakes where you almost make a mistake and you correct it.
Right.
I mean, there's nights on the line where you're cooking too, where it's like everything's almost falling apart, literally almost falling apart, and you feel like you're failing the whole time, but you pull it off.
And nobody else knows. It's just
nobody
in
else.
between your ears.
Exactly.
Yes,
It's and the papers did like your fucking tickets just keep stacking up.
I think those experiences in the kitchen
Yeah.
made every day in the grow that much easier.
Right.
Because I'm like, you're not going to burn yourself. You might cut yourself, but it's going to be a little nick of some scissors or something. But to deal with all those, like you just said, all those problems and all those things that arose all the time, and having to put out the fire, pivot, replace it.
Well, yeah. I mean, those are the things that define you to a degree, and like mentally also prepare you. Those type of moments. It's like they really prepare you for other things in life, and you realize how small some of the things that we worry about so much are too. And it's like that phrase, "This too shall pass," right? Like this too shall, the hard times and the good times.
Absolutely.
It's like, and no matter how bad it seems like it is, it's like you're going to pass into something else eventually, no matter what. And so breathing, getting through those moments, it's like, I don't know how many times over the last 10 years, it's like seemed like it was just tough and it was going to everything was, at the lows, but then your lows become highs and then your highs then become lows. And,
exactly.
And somewhere in between. And,
at
the end of the day, you just have to put one foot in front of the other. And, there's days where you just got to get up and you suck it up, and you don't just get to stay in bed. You just get up and you power through.
Yeah. I had one. I was growing. You've been out to the hemp farm. We were getting ready for one season, and man, I think starting in like November, December, I started all the plants. I had these plants perfect, like the best looking mothers, completely organic, nothing going on with them as far as bugs, which no bugs in a greenhouse in Colorado is pretty easy, because everything outside's dead.
Yeah.
But we got into the cloning, and first set of cloning went great. We needed to cut, I think it was 125,000 clones to populate the field. First 25,000 went fine. The next 100,000 clones, we would cut them. They would look perfect. We'd walk in the greenhouse, and these things were folded over within 24 hours, and nobody knew what was going on. Some people, too much airflow, too much humidity. There's all these opinions, but no, it was some kind of pathogen that was inside that greenhouse that was just jumping in there and knocking these things out. And
we didn't even talk about pathogens back then.
I know, that was just it. You're like, well, what is it? Is it Pythium? Is it, we don't know. We're bro scientists at this point, just trying to figure it out. But you're right. Like getting up every morning to go check that greenhouse 24 hours after I cut those clones. Like I couldn't even drink coffee. I was so stressed out. I mean, sweat would be pouring out of my hands on the steering wheel. And then just to whip open that greenhouse door and see them all folded over. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'm like, pull in the Bobcat, throw all these in the bucket. Bucket goes to the compost pile, and like
one foot in front of the next.
Do it again. Yep. Yeah. And cutting that many clones, that's like being on the Viking ship and somebody's just like, boom.
Yeah.
Boom. You just got to keep going. You got to keep going.
So how did you go from being a chef to transition and doing it at scale? When we met, you were at scale. You've been working at scale with farmers, hemp farmers, growing massive amounts of acres for hemp and huge greenhouses. How did you go from being a home grower and a chef to get into that?
So the little bit of medical time, as soon as medical popped off, a buddy of mine, I was living on an 80-acre farm in Colorado. We decided to push the envelopes a little bit. We built 4 big greenhouses. I was basically going off of what I had seen in greenhouse production in California, like through high times or what, I kind of was like, okay, these plants need to be big. They need to fill out the space, but you still got to have some airflow, whatever. So I had, I think it was 2 seasons under my belt, Colorado outdoor in these big greenhouses. And that's when all the venture capitalists and all that started to come into Colorado.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bunch of dudes are coming in town with a bunch of money. And this one guy had walked through my greenhouse with an iPad and taking a bunch of pictures or whatever. And he showed it to one of these guys, and this guy showed up And he's like, "You're hired, you're fired." Like this whole, it was crazy.
Wow.
And I was like, "Well, what are we doing?" He's like, "I want you to look at this property." And he showed me this property and he's like, "We got to rebuild this thing. And I want you to do it exactly like you did it over there." And so, yeah, man, I went from 4 greenhouses that were like, I don't know, 3120s to 43,000 square feet,
That's
But
crazy.
I think what it is like, it's just like being a chef, it's like, it really doesn't matter if you're cooking 1 cover or if you're cooking 1,000 covers, you just got to prepare for it,
Yeah.
and yeah, just see it, all the little stuff first, all the way out to the big picture. And
Right.
that's, I didn't have any staff at the time. So I went to the local skate park. I found, I love skateboarders are my dudes. Like, if I'm going to hire anybody, they're either going to be a wrestler from high school or a skateboarder, because those 2 people are some of the most driven people that you could ever imagine. Like,
to be able to ride a skateboard on a ramp or in a park
and to fall down repeatedly.
Yeah, exactly. Do it over and over
and do it over and over
get back
again.
up and
And think about what you did wrong and do it again.
Fall down 7, stay up 8.
Yep. Shout out to little Jason Henderson, Little J. I was Big J. He was Little J. That guy followed me, helped me out a ton at that place and went to Washington with me. And yeah, man, he was the guy that could, like, he knew vegetation and cloning, like, just like that. It was just in his blood,
Yeah, it's funny, those life lessons that you can apply to cannabis too. It's like and not even cannabis, but doing everything. It kind of all follows suit. Like, if you want to be good at something, it doesn't matter whether it's growing or breeding or whatever. It's like, you want to play the guitar, you want to learn how to do this or that. You want to, you got to fail a bunch along the way to really learn how to do it properly or to be really good at it.
Yep. Yeah, it's very much using your eyes, it's using your brain and using your eyes and looking at things. And yeah, you should be able to read a plant just by looking at it, like, well, what's going on with that plant? Like, are the stems green all the way through? Does it have any little purple streaks going through it? Like, oh, looks like you missed out on some nitrate there, dude. Like, just being able to read those plants like that and read it from afar. And
and repetition. Over and over and over, and learning how to do it your own way.
Yep. And all these cultivars, they're all just like anybody else in your life, like, certain things about them. It's like, okay, like that Afghani or that hash plant, like, she likes to be a little bit wider and a little bit loamier soil. She doesn't like all that water. She doesn't like dense soil, OGs, as little of water as possible, but as often as possible, with a ton of calcium and magnesium to help things move around in that little spaghetti-like stem, like, it's just, they all have their nuances. And
the spaghetti.og. If you don't jealous it,
it's like my favorite stuff. But dude, it's just like, come on, girl, like, stand up straight. It's just, it's getting to know them all and how they work for you, And I think, like, that's what we saw, like, especially in Colorado. Like, it's really hard to find a dispensary that's got like pre-98 Bubba Kush now, because, like, the plant didn't fit
there's
into
a
production.
whole bigger. It fit into the. I mean, it finished early. There was definitely benefits, but the pre-98 isn't really what you see today. You see a Bubba Kush, the one that finishes in like 50 days.
I think, I think that's burgers, right? I'm pretty sure.
So.
That was just it. Like, it was a little bit longer to clone, so it kind of screwed up your 2-week routine and your clone there, and then, as opposed to having it ready for the field in 21 days, it might need 35. So then it screwed up your time and veg. And then, you've got this huge canopy. I mean, you saw I had 14 foot wide Blue Dreams or whatever, super lemon hazes.
Yeah.
And then you got this little Blue Dream or this little Bubba Kush, hanging out. Yeah. And, investors are walking by. They're like, what's wrong with that one? Yeah. You're like, absolutely nothing. It just doesn't look like that one,
Right.
So.
Well, California, we had the mids market was filled with Bubba, and they grew it at scale. Like, you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
But then that's kind of transitioned into the Runts gelato, lemon cherry gelato, Runts.
Yeah.
Gelatos, all the different gelato 33, 41s.
You guys, it's crazy because I'm, in Colorado, I'm always about 2.5 years behind what you guys are up to. Like, it takes that long for us to actually get our hands on it, typically, unless, you got the plug over here. That's
eventually it's going to come back all the way around.
Yeah. I think it's fun to watch new markets open up, because that's when you find some of these strains that we considered gone. It's like, well, some dude in Oklahoma has had it in his closet for 20 years.
Just talking to Crockett, we were talking about green crack. I like green crack.
Yeah.
I really like green crack. Now, it doesn't necessarily fit into the commercially popular varieties of cannabis that we're enjoying today on the rec market, but it could make it come back. But either way, I like some of the traits. I like the effect, especially, the effect where it just hits you hard, but then you build a tolerance to it.
Yeah. And it's a fun one to grow, and it's quick, you know, like, I mean, it's definitely like, it's a user-friendly plant pretty much from A to Z. Like,
Yeah.
definitely has a spot to be appreciated.
Totally. So with food, you I think one of the biggest things is you build this foundation and you learn how to make a dish and then make your own twist to it as a chef, right? So like if you're coming in, whereas with breeding, it's like a different thought process, but you've been getting into breeding too over the last year.
I have.
How's that going?
It's good. I look at it more of like a part of me wants to be a preservation breeder, you know, and increase what's already. I would hate for something to go away just because people lost interest in it. You know, I'm old enough to know that, like, one day Jinkos are going to come back. You know what I mean? Like all these.
Oh, Jinkos are like $400 a pair on
there
eBay.
You go, you know? I mean, like I saw somebody wearing Doc Martens the other day. I'm like, wow, that reminds me of 1994 in high school, you know, or the punk rock scene, which is even older than that. But yeah, I think it all comes back around. So what I was first concerned about, I wanted to push as many cannabinoids into a plant as I could.
Yeah.
And that was kind of coming from the hemp field to the lab. Because it used to be kind of a pain in the ass to be like, oh, well, I've got this CBG strain here. That's this section of the field. I've got this CBC over here. This is CBD.
Yeah.
This is all my VAs. And I would have to, you know, batch them for the lab to figure it out versus knowing what happens in the lab and the fact that they can just spill over whatever they want to spill over and grab it.
Right.
So I started working on a project. I called it the Noid. And it dates me from the old Domino's commercials, you know, remember, like avoid the Noid. So just the cannabinoid plant. And I really wanted to just push as much as I could into that. And I wasn't really...
You were looking for the most amount of diversity or complexity as you could possibly push into a plant.
Yep. And what I ended up with, I mean, this thing is nasty. Like, she is loaded with D, G, lots of C, but she's stinky. She is very much like a Hindu Kush. Wow. So then I took that and I put it into other things like puck, you know, like more hash plants.
You're big into that puck.
Just to kind of go BX on that. And because of the fact, like, that puck that's one of the hardest plants I've ever had to hang on to. Like, she is so finicky. And so yeah, kind of do an increase on that. And then I also wanted to do for the hemp farmers, I wanted to do, you know, triple crop was becoming a big thing, you know, to get your seed, your fiber, and your cannabinoids all in one plant.
The perfect plant.
Yeah. So I was trying to go for something that was like 14 feet tall, you know, with like no offshoots at all. And then I was packing on like about a foot and a half tall cola on the top that's just loaded with seeds.
So basically breeding the intersex traits into it and having the complete, Yep.
Yeah, because I was realizing, you know, as hemp farming in Europe, you know, they take the tops off the plant, grab everything they want there, and then they let it, you know, basically sit in the field for a little bit longer, and that outer, it'll decorticate itself. Really, it'll like it'll just sheath off, you know?
Yeah.
So then you got that pure fiber down below it. So I was trying to go for that, where it's like, okay, harvest your cannabinoids and your food products first, and then come back and get your fiber content last. But yeah, now I'm like, I don't know. I love like all this purple gassy stuff. Like we were just talking about Star Killer and stuff like that. And
I love Star Killer.
I teach you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the green, I feel like you want stronger stuff, it's going to be green and not purple.
Right.
So yeah, as far as people always want what they can't have. They want this purple stuff and then they want it to be super potent. And it's like, there is some stuff that's borderline strong, but it's not like the gassy stuff.
No, that gassy stuff was its own era.
Or the hazy stuff.
Again, yeah, like, wow. You know, like some of the first good weed that I got, there's a dude around Athens, Georgia that was growing this Swazi.
Oh, dude, the Swazi, yeah.
The Swazi. And like, I mean, you could take 5 little calyxes and put it into a bowl and go throw a Frisbee for 4 hours, you know, just like completely psychedelic. And I mean, it was completely ceilingless. The more you smoke, the higher you got.
Most of the stuff isn't like that now.
It's not like that at all. And a quarter of it was like that big, you know?
Yeah,
like,
you see a lot of stuff in Europe too. Seriously. Yeah, 16
like,
weeks.
It's not announced. Like, nope, it's just a big quarter.
Yeah, it's funny.
But yeah, that stuff. I was tripping on acid one night and the homie came through with a jar of it and it literally shut down my ability to speak. Like I had to totally shut it. It's just like, I can't talk.
Right.
Yep.
So what's your favorite thing to grow and what's the best thing you've ever smoked?
Ooh, man, right now, my favorite thing to grow, and it was a total accident. It came out of my old trap. I had a room full of Kim and I had a room full of Crippy, and I found one seed in a Crippy bud, and I popped that thing, and it turned into this like OGKB looking plant, slow growing, silver purple. It's got like this almost like a soapy, piffy smell to it. Really heavy buzz. Like it's really Crippy in the buzz. I called it the Ducky because it's got just a complete duck leaf, and
Nice.
that's my son's nickname, just by coincidence. So the Ducky is my favorite to grow right now. It's definitely not. It'll never be a production strain. There's no way it can be. It's just too slow. But I am, I try to run through all the hypey stuff. I get it. I flower it. I check it out. I really like everything that Chris has been doing. I don't think he's with Compound anymore, but
Yeah.
like that guy's stuff is amazing.
Chris Compound that's not with Compound.
Yeah, I don't know his last name.
Is Christopher Lynch.
Oh, I did know that. My bad. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, Chris is a good dude.
Yeah, he's awesome.
I've only had good experiences with Chris.
Yeah, so. Man. I've popped a bunch of his Joker stuff. The acai was awesome. I think everything he's doing, I think it's all solid work. Fletch from Archive, I think consistently puts out the hits, and I think he puts out the hits that people talk about.
Yeah.
Scott Reach is a dear friend. Anything Red Agnes does, I love it.
He does some good work.
He does some great work, man.
Yeah, that Star Killer is epic.
It's so good.
I got some Star Killer flower that's nuts. We've had the same cut going around for a long time that we've kept alive. And
nice.
But yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, he passed me a Star Killer cut and a Flow OG, and that Flow OG went on to win second place in the Adam Dunn thing a couple years back.
Nice.
Well, date myself 5 years
Adam
ago.
is a character. Adam is a total character. Man. Yeah, I was on the phone with him earlier.
He's awesome.
We got so at MJ Biz this year, him and I are releasing Sage Against the Machine crosses.
Oh shit.
So yeah.
Is that part of the Sage and Sour product?
Yeah, that was the Sage and Sour. I made the seeds, and he helped curate the stuff, and he did the packaging and all that, but I did the breeding work.
I was on his show. We smoked some Sage and Sour that a buddy had sifted, and
was it Sage and Sour crosses, or was it actual Sage and Sour?
It was the Sage and Sour from a few years back.
It
was wild, man. It was really
I love
good.
Sage and Sour. I love the one that has the open bud structure the most, where it's not the nested bracts, but very open and podularly where the bracts stack. But like that stuff, we had it at Harborside. We used to get it at Harborside too.
Okay,
that stuff it tasted crazy.
Nice.
It tasted like a blend of sour and sage with a lot of gas in it, and it was just really
that's awesome.
It was a really unique flavor.
Yeah, man, I love all the diesels. Like I still hang on to the day record. I've got a couple. I've got like an East Coast sour diesel that I like a lot. I've got an Albany sour diesel that I'm really digging on. So I like those old flavors, but I'm not scared to try anything new. I don't get the potency on some of the newer stuff that I prefer. The taste is amazing. I think back on my younger self. I'm like, man, if I was smoking this when I was 19, like I wouldn't leave the couch, I'd just sit here and smoke this all day.
It tastes so good.
It tastes so good.
So I find myself with some of these rosins where I'll like have them in a jar and I'm watching TV or something. Like I keep smelling it over and over.
A little aromatherapy.
I'm taking the terps away from it, but it's taking all the aroma out of it. But I enjoy just the smell of the stuff. And I feel like that's one of the beauties of the cannabis plant is like it has these amazing profiles that we can really relate to and we get excited about.
Totally, man. It's such a diverse plant. And that's kind of like what I was saying earlier. I feel like it, and I'm just a dude, but like, I find it impossible that everything else, like cannabis can smell like everything. Like, how is that possible? Like, it seems like that has to be like the first plant that created terpenes and like everything else like evolved into.
Well, it's interesting because do you think you could take cucumbers and breed them into all kinds of, there's lemon cucumbers, right? So cannabis is the most cultivated plant on the planet. There's more variety, not most cultivated, but there's more diversity in cultivated cannabis than anything else. So what if we applied all that same diversity to cucumbers or, anything cruciferous related from?
Yeah. My latest pivot, man, I kind of, I'm not done with cannabis by any means, but the industry's just in a place where I'm not as involved right now. I'm kind of taking a step back, watching the plane circle the runway a little bit. Doing some behind the scenes work that, I feel will be prudent work whenever I want to pop it back in. But I met a really awesome dude, Grant, my man. This guy's got a flower farm.
Yeah.
And dude, that's been the biggest pivot for me, is like growing these dahlias and like checking out. You talk about a diverse plant, like these dahlias, they have, I forget the set of chromosomes they have, but it's very similar to cannabis, where, you can start breeding something and you might not get anything that looks like mother or father,
Totally. With all these recessive traits and then inbreeding too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny. Like if you look at cruciferous and how it evolved into like brassica, like wild mustard, how it evolved into all these different things.
Broccoli,
Whether they're talking about broccoli,
Brussels
cabbage.
sprouts.
Yeah. I mean,
it's wild.
All these different expressions. Like there's that amount of diversity too. Like if you go back into something like wild mustard, but like the potential for what we can do with the plant even more, we're just, it's not that we're scratching the surface. We've done a lot of interesting stuff, but in some ways with technology, we're scratching the surface. And the potential is going to be even more amazing, I think, in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right, man. We're, back when we were playing with it, it wasn't, you weren't allowed to play with this stuff, so everything had to be kept quiet, and it was very much of a quiet society, and now it's like we can share the information, we can share Instagram, the cuts.
Everybody's talking about it, it's like.
Yeah, or, like you're going to have the ability to sell somebody their favorite cut and it'll show up 24 hours after they click a button, that's amazing. Like before it used to be, dude, start going through the old hippie Rolodex and see who you knew and track it down or, whatever. And
make a long trip, a road trip.
A dangerous one.
Yeah.
Because you got your weed on you.
Totally.
Yeah.
So you've grown in both Colorado and Washington. So you were in Washington for a little while. And those are the most opposite places on the whole planet as far as cultivation is concerned. You're talking about super dry Colorado versus super humid Washington. And
I was 22 miles from the beach. So it was, man, fog rolled in every morning. Big learning curve there. And that, again, that's when I really started to figure out like the microbiology behind things, Like if you keep the trichoderma pumping, you're going to keep a lot of those problems away. We brought some strains up from Colorado that were hitters, like this old purple diesel we had. It was
that
just
like the Oregon diesel? One of the purple phenos of it, or?
I don't know. It came from my experience. It came out of a dispensary in Colorado. I think when we were sourcing plants in the very beginning.
I remember purple diesel from Colorado.
It was good, and it performed really well, and the yield was really well. But we took that strain to Washington State, and we set up a little like kind of R&D medical greenhouse, whatever. And I remember putting like 22 of these plants out and seeing a little bit of bud rot, and I was like, okay, we're all right. We'll carve that out.
Yeah.
The next day, you could walk up and just like slop the whole thing on the ground. I was like, okay, we gotta learn a lot about how to move this air around and dry this air out. And yeah.
Struggles.
Huge.
Well, and then genetics, it's like field testing, the stuff that works good in Colorado does not necessarily work in Washington, especially for outdoor. So doing proper field testing and being able to identify what works well. It's so different than indoor. People don't really always understand how much different and how plants respond in a different. You could have the same exact cultivar in Washington or in Colorado, and you're going to get a different expression of the plant.
100%. And I think, a lot of that's UV. A lot of it, like altitude is a big thing too. Like in Boulder, Colorado, we're kind of sitting similar to like a Hindu Kush Afghani environment. We're kind of high desert, very arid, cold weather, cold nights.
Dry as
fuck. And so like, these plants want to stay close to the ground. They want to spread their feet out, versus some of these tropical varieties that want to shoot up like a pole to outcompete anything that might be near them.
Right.
They've got a kind of a narrow rootstock that doesn't go out too far. That way you can pack them in tighter.
Yeah.
It's just all these different, it's been cool. And, I think about like Oklahoma. I'm like, okay, now you kind of got Colorado, but then you're throwing in all that humidity and that heat. And then you already have like natural fungus blowing around in that wind.
Totally.
I mean, there's tons of stuff. And then you go further south and it's like, tomatoes, they grow great in the South, but they also get tons of pathogens,
For sure.
And then you go to Florida,
now
you're growing in a swamp, so indoor versus anything else, you have to have
so different.
It's so different. And nothing against a good indoor grower, because I mean, it takes the eyes and it takes the effort, whatever you're doing to get it done.
You're doing. Yeah. If there's passion involved, like, I mean, and it's not easy. That's the thing is like, it's easy to every once in a while get lucky in a small home grow, or, to do it at scale is so different, right? Like, and to be able to produce good flower at scale, it takes a special eye. And it doesn't matter whether it's outdoor at scale or indoor at scale or whatever it is. Like, there's learning curves to all of it, and being able to move past the tough times.
Yeah. And everybody likes doing anything the first time when it's fun and it looks good, It's like, oh man, we got this brand new facility. We're going to crank out. Let's see what we can hit, But then you got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep doing it. You got to keep showing up, and you can't get comfortable with what you think you're doing, because eventually you're going to fall off of your own path, like it takes almost somebody else to be like, hey man, let's bring it back this way,
Right.
So yeah, it's very much like you got to be your own cheerleader. You got to be
That's life though.
That's life.
That's life. You got to be your own cheerleader in life. But that's a great example of,
and motivating other people to be there with you. You're like, all right, man, like we got 1,000 plants to take down a day. Like we don't stop at 12.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I used to sleep a lot less, and now I'm forcing myself to sleep more. But it's like as we've gotten older, it's like when I was in my 30s, I'm like, I only need 4 hours, 5 hours of sleep,
maybe.
And partying when I was younger, that was different. But then I went through this phase where I'm like, I don't need a lot of sleep, I can do it. But like, I value sleep now because I feel like for health, I value sleep, and it's like, and then being as productive as possible during the day is,
agreed. I love my wife for giving me that right now. She's like, dude, you need to get that morning sleep. You need to rest. Like, because as a farmer, the past, Henry's 11, I've been doing it longer than that, for cannabis. So, I mean, man, we're up at 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, in the field by 6, right? In the greenhouse by 6:30, 7 o'clock. But I mean, it's a greenhouse, so you got to be out of there by like 2:30. You're still going to, you're just going to have a life, but life starts early. And then you take all that stress, and then years and years and years and years of that compound, and all of a sudden, I don't know. Some days I'm going down the stairs, I feel like an old uncooked spaghetti noodle, and crack, crack, crack. It's like,
I know the feeling. But it's interesting with cooking. It's better than, not that it's better than cooking. It's different than cooking. Being a chef, and that's a whole different sort of toll that takes on your body too.
I agree.
And different kind of stress. We have different stresses now about plants rather than food, but it's like, and all those things are character building for sure.
Man, I wouldn't trade a thing. Like being a chef taught me, it put my, like, this is how you become a man. This is how you stay a man. Like, these are the things you're going to focus, or you're going to have to face and focus on. And if you don't, then you're not going to be a chef very long, or you're not going to be a top, a head chef very long. No.
And I think, if you want to be a chef or if you want to be a grower, the biggest thing is realizing where you're really at. And, it's like, because you can improve. If you know that you can improve, you can improve. But if you think you've got it all figured out, that's when you failed to a degree, because there's always improvement. There's always room for improvement.
Always.
And going through life, it's like, whether you're a chef, like being able to take a step back and get rid of the ego, I think that's ties into the mushrooms too. Even like, I mean, being able to get rid of your ego and realize who you are, and authenticity is such a big thing now too. As we've gotten older, it's like, I think being authentic is so important.
I thought that I worked with a lot of egotistical maniacs in the culinary world, but then I
got nothing on these breeders.
Then I got into cannabis, man. I'm like, wow. Like,
cannabis is a whole nother, like, and I think there's like the whole rock star side of it. But the funny thing is like, as funny as like the whole rock star side of these guys and people wanting to be, pot celebrities or whatever, we're going back to being tomato farmers, and you got to do it because you love it.
Exactly.
And it's not like the rock star image that, I mean, there were cannabis rock stars.
Sure.
It's like, look at Ariane from Greenhouse. He's definitely like the cannabis rock star, lives up to that. He's done it. And, a handful of other guys as well. But we're going back into agriculture to a degree and farming and doing stuff because you love it. We're tomato farmers to a degree. And maybe not tomato farmers, but it's similar.
I feel like cannabis right now is going through like culinary went through when the slow food movement started.
Yeah.
And it was like, you know what, dude, like you may think you know how to make a tomato sauce, but like where are your tomatoes coming from? And let's go all the way back down to the field.
Tomatoes,
source that.
Tomatoes are important in the culinary. But quality tomatoes, it's funny because like there's such a a difference in a wide variety of tomatoes and the quality of the tomatoes and how impactful that is to food.
Absolutely.
And that goes across the board with all the vegetables that are cultivated out there.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we only see one or two expressions of those things in the store, but like with potatoes, there's, I don't know, thousands of different cultivars of potatoes or varieties of potatoes.
I almost think this is the gift that cannabis is going to give us. It's going to teach a bunch of people how to grow it.
Yeah.
And then they're going to get the tools, and then they're going to use those tools to go grow dahlias. So they're going to grow, like go geek out on something else. And I think that's one more of her gifts. She's going to educate you to the point where you're like, why am I not growing celery? Or, what can I do in my backyard? And
totally,
especially if you're following, all these like build a soil. And I mean, you can.
Yeah, you do living soil. So we talked about, you do. And it's a low till living soil, right?
Yeah, I can't say it's no till because I do top dress and scratch and stuff like that. And I mean, if a situation's bad enough, I will dig up some soil and replace it.
Yeah.
This year, my outdoor crop, it's 6-year living soil from Build a Soil.
Yeah.
In my backyard, 200-gallon pots. I put out 21 plants. I could have 24.
Yeah.
Kept it a little under, just keep them off my back. But dude, it was water only. That was it this year. I was like, you know what? I don't have the time. I don't want to. I was kind of done putting it all. It was fire. It was great. It's fire. Awesome. It's hanging out. It's hanging like a bat right now.
Nice.
Like I cut down the last day record yesterday before I got on the plane.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So so that same thing I can throw like I did that 3 sisters technique this year where you're growing corn, melons, and beans together.
Yeah.
Same soil, no fertilizer, and
what's that called? Complementary planting or something like that?
Yeah. So you're using the corn to grow tall. The beans will grow up the corn, and then the melon will ground cover.
Yeah.
But the beans are also nitrogen fixing the soil for the corn.
Correct.
It's just this really cool. And everything came out awesome. We've got a couple fun little pumpkins to play around with for Halloween. And dude, I had way too many green beans this year. Like
green beans are awesome though.
Green beans are awesome.
Yeah.
It's one thing my kid will definitely chow down on. So
yeah,
dude, I love vegetables. Yeah. Like vegetables. Yeah. I mean, like you said about tomatoes, I just, every spring I'm like, okay, I need 1 of these tomatoes. I need 5 of these different peppers. I got a little geeked out backyard, but
yeah. Shout out to all the tomato farmers out there, man.
Yeah, man. Right.
Yeah.
Keep doing it, guys.
Yeah.
All the farmers,
dude,
man.
all the farmers.
They all need a big pat on the back and a big hug.
Yeah. Including the cannabis ones, I think. But anybody who's still doing it, whether it's, agriculture, cannabis, whatever, man, the fact is times are tough and we're going to make it through this just like everything else. And there's always going to be a need for food. And I think the more awareness there is about quality, the more we're seeing it with cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Colorado is a more mature market and Washington's a more mature market than California. And I feel like in Colorado, brands have become established and they're not going off the hype as much as they are brands, and brand awareness is a bigger thing. And the THC percentage, that stuff's all going to go away. We're going to be talking about aroma and other things and effect.
Yep. Yeah. In Colorado, it's definite. Like you have your bargain shoppers who, that's kind of the dude that buys the Mountain Thunder instead of buying Mountain Dew. You know what I mean? He goes to Walmart and buys the knockoff soda. There's plenty of that weed out there. There's plenty of what, people are calling mids or whatever. Like it's salty weed that is not that great. Yeah. But the brands that are doing really good and the brands that can sell their pounds of weed or their extracts are all about quality. And they're breeding their own in-house cultivars that nobody else has. So it separates them there. They're separating themselves through the technique or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
The mass appeal, that's like for the back of the Westward magazine, if you're looking for a $50 ounce, it's out there, probably even cheaper.
Right. I mean, I saw $10 ounces in Oregon, like advertised.
But like Green Dot, like that, Green Dot Dave, that guy, like constantly raising the bar. Every time they make a drop, the bar is raised. And
have you heard of NorCal Nemo?
No.
So NorCal Nemo sells the $1,800 ounces of Skittles and $1,000 ounces of guava gas. And so, and the stuff is phenomenal. It's like
organic, I'm guessing.
Organic. Yeah. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
Obviously super terpy, super flavorful, good effect. But like, I love those stories. And some people are like, oh, that's not worth it, whatever. But I love hearing stories about somebody succeeding like that on that level. especially if they're true, because it increases the value of everything anybody else is doing at quality, right?
Agreed.
So, because at a certain point, when we're talking about the most amazing stuff that we like to smoke, and that's of the highest quality, the A triple plus stuff, I think that has flavor and effect and all that, it's all subjective to the individual. It's almost like art.
Yep.
Like tattoos.
Tattoos. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very good. Yeah, great example. You know, you can go get scratched on by some guy down on Main Street for, $20, or you can, pay $1,000 for a couple hours from your favorite artist. You know, and
or go to Japan, get hammered on.
Get hammered. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, go somewhere and get a whole different technique, it's wild, man. Yeah. I think cannabis, I don't feel like anybody should feel like their ship has left the harbor, or whatever the saying is. Like, there's plenty of room at the table for everybody, but you do need to pull up your own seat, and you do need to be present. And and just like, pick a reason to do it, but do it for a good reason.
Passion should drive you, and so this is one thing I know we can agree on, is that passion should drive you in everything in life. And it's like being a chef, you really get that like passion driven, because you wouldn't work those long hours and do those shitty days that, there's good days that come along with it, but there's shitty days too. And you wouldn't suck it all up if you didn't love it. Same thing with cannabis. And I feel like as we get older, it's like, there's other ways to make money too, but it's like being able to be in cannabis and to be able to contribute to something that's so much bigger than us, I feel like is an amazing thing. And it's an amazing opportunity that we're blessed to be a part of.
It is, man. It really is. Like, it taught me how to feed myself. It helped me. I mean, I've helped, I don't even know how many people with different problems, my brother-in-law had stage 4 glioblastoma and got 6 months to live, and CBD, man, like huge fat syringes of CBD.
CBD is a game changer.
He's rad, he's great. He's
That's
fine.
Amazing.
Yeah, man. It's just,
it saves lives.
It saves lives.
It makes the world a better place. I think that's the biggest thing is like, it saves lives. It does all these things. It brings us together. We wouldn't be here today without it. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
I would have walked right past you if I'd never knew about weed,
Yeah. I mean, it's such a big part of my life, big part of your life. And a lot of the people that watch the show, it's just such a special plant and special on so many levels. And it's like, it's definitely part of everything that we do.
Yep. I mean, sometimes it's the reason I can't go on that super long vacation I want to go on with my wife and my family. And
sure,
there's a lot of sacrifice, man. I've had plants I've had longer than my son, like I've kept a little plant longer than I've had my son, and it is awesome. It presents so many opportunities in this world. So
it gives back.
It does,
for sure. What 100%. You put in, you get out of it. And there's not a lot of things you can say about that in life, Because relationships are another one. You get what comes out is what you put into it. And I think it should. But you learn real quick with relationships.
With relationships, you start coasting. You take your foot off the gas and you start coasting, and things start getting real swervy. Like you got to stay focused. And
with relationships, until it gets tough, you really don't know the relationship or the person. It's when you go through tough times that's when you really see who people are and what people are made of.
Yeah.
Who's there for you and who's not. And, and it's important to go through those things in life. Struggle it's like, I wanted to run away from struggle as a kid, or whatever. Like I thought the struggle was bad. We wanted to like live a comfortable life, and comfort isn't what life's all about. And it's real interesting because as I've gotten older, I feel like struggle is what makes you great, but it's also what makes life great.
Yeah.
Like experiencing struggle and to be able to make it past that, and growing and to be able to grow a plant and experience those type of things. Or, dogs are another, you're a big dog guy. I lost my dog. Lost my dog almost 3 months ago now.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
It was like my best friend in the whole world.
The best hellos and the worst goodbye, man. Like dogs are on a whole nother level, dude.
But senior dogs, I have a new appreciation for senior dogs, man. I didn't realize, I always thought the puppy stage is like the best part until we had a senior dog that like the senior years were the best, where she wanted to be with us all the time. And yeah, it's interesting. And dogs are so amazing.
They are, man. Like once you bring them into your life, they're like, okay, I got one job, and it's to hang with this guy, and make sure he's all right. And I mean, I have a 130-pound Rottweiler, and
the big head.
He's a big dude. Yeah. And all he wants to do is hang out with my son or by, the family. That's his job. He knows it.
And I think he was named after one of the best country music singers of all time, Sturgill Simpson.
Yeah, Sturgill Simpson, man. Yeah. Like I fell in love with Sturgill Simpson, and
you turned me on to Sturgill Simpson back in the day, a long time ago.
I hope his voice gets better. Apparently, like he's got some voice issues or something. So yeah.
Well, and
come on,
he went from like this amazing country to doing amazing bluegrass too.
That is bluegrass albums. Boy.
Those two albums are just next level. But I mean, all his stuff is great. And he's another passionate guy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I liked about him. He's like kind of like that old 70s hillbilly talking about weed, but he's talking about like DMT and turtles and, like,
totally.
Turtles all the way down and stuff. And like, that definitely, Sturgill's the man. Like, I love all this stuff.
Yeah.
But Big Sturge, I thought it'd be a good name for a big old goofy Rottweiler.
Totally. Yeah, it's funny because like his music is kind of in line with the Grateful Dead. There's some alignment there with the message.
Yeah.
And it's also, it's just music is an amazing thing. This vibration.
Yeah. You got to catch those last Dead shows. Yeah.
Dude, I stayed 20 minutes I was 20 feet, not 20 minutes. It felt like 20 minutes, but 20 feet from the stage, all 3 nights. And I didn't go to the restroom during intermission any of those nights.
Wow.
And the only night I had to go to the bathroom was the 3rd night. At intermission, I'm like, damn it, I wish I could go. So I just sucked it up.
Yeah.
It was a great time.
Bobby, man, what an inspiration. I love that guy's IG. He's just like working out every town he goes to.
Seriously.
He's like swinging shit around his head.
Yeah, he's got some cool stuff. Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah, he's inspirational, especially for moving into the older years of our lives, like going to that next stage. It's like, well, that's going to be okay too.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I thought 40-year-olds were old.
Dude,
when I was 18, I was like, man, that dude's hella old. And he's like 40. And really, like now that I'm past 40, it's like, I don't feel all that old.
No. And I think it's important now because, you're a healthy guy and you're focused on your health. And I am similar to, I take a lot of supplements and stuff like that. But I'm 47 now. Yeah. But I'm not going to be 47, here in the next couple of years. So I think it's really important to start thinking about that. Like, okay, man, like here comes 55 and what's that look like? Cause I got a 11.5-year-old. He's almost 12. Like, it's not all like it used to be. Just do what you want to do for you,
Right.
Now I got people to look out for and
there's a bigger picture.
Sturge to feed.
Sturge. Yeah. Gotta love the dogs though.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So I want to stick around for as long as possible, man. I mean, there's a reason I don't do hard drugs or smoke cigarettes or do whatever.
I asked you a question, but I didn't get the answer what your favorite thing to smoke was.
I'm gonna have to say my Desert Island strain would be Dog Walker OG.
Nice.
If I was just gonna sit on, if I had just to enjoy, just to be high and not focus on anything else.
One thing you could only smoke for the rest of your life while you lived on that desert island.
Yeah, I think it would, it'd make me paranoid enough to keep moving. It would get me stoned enough to go to sleep.
It's great when those tolerant free strains to where like there's no tolerance. There's the tolerance free where like it doesn't matter how long you smoke it, you don't fully build a tolerance to it, or it'll still get you high in the morning.
Yeah.
Or even in the evening after you've been smoking all day for like 3 months of the like green crack after a week. That's it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff like that.
I would say Chem 91, but it's just like, if you even like look at that plant wrong, it's going to turn out different than it did the time before. It's just, she takes a lot of effort and a lot of knowledge. And so, I think my go-to is that Dog Walker because I can grow her big and strong and
nice.
Yeah, I like it. And all the concentrates are great from her.
I bet.
But she's a head bringer, man.
Yeah. Potent.
Triangle Kush too. Like all those.
I like the TK. The lime green TK is fire.
I brought some TK for you to try.
I love TK.
It's a motor breath, So, I like all those chems and those. Yeah, that's
for sure.
The Grateful Dead weed, man.
All the Grateful Dead. Yeah, I mean, all the stuff is nostalgic.
It is.
The music, but then all these experiences every once in a while, like.
Yeah, I think it's cool too, like where you grew up, like these New York cats are like, oh, it's all about the sour, bro. It's like
the sour,
it's like, dude, it is about the sour, it
is, but it's also about everything else too.
Yeah. And it fits the electricity of New York City. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like that kind of weed. Like you can like flow through the city with,
we're going to smoke some good sour in a minute here.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah. So if you had the opportunity to go back and talk to your younger self that had been in the industry for just about a year, what would you tell your younger self?
Number one would be get rid of the chef ego day one, right? Because like that was out of control. I was trying to like, it was just like a kitchen, and I was trying to climb up the ladder. And like, if you're in my way, I was a little rough, dude. And I think I would have been a little bit more kumbaya. I think I did a good job on keeping my eyes and my ears open, but I would now, with all the research there is, like, especially with the socials and the Patreons and all that, I would dive deep into all that stuff right now. Like what Brandon Russ is talking about. Like, I mean,
he's been on the show. He's the man.
He's the man. Like I just was listening to him on First Smoke of the Day the other day. And like, I mean, yeah, those kind of dudes, there's like so much knowledge to gain. And I don't care, like, if you want to run front row.
He's self-taught.
That's so the cool thing.
It's the beauty of it, right? You don't have to, if you don't want to go to school, you don't have to go to school.
No. No, like, it's all about reverse engineering what you really love. Like if it's like, dude, I love mountain biking. It's like, well, don't not go to college because you want to ride your mountain bike. Go work at a bike shop or go get sponsored or, start getting some coins, start stacking some coin from something you love.
You didn't start early doesn't mean you can't do it. That's the beauty, like I've learned to reinvent myself over the years with doing different things. Cannabis has always kind of been a constant. Mm-hmm. I've always smoked, so, but as far as like, I've worked in IT, I've done all kinds of different stuff, worked as a chef. Mm-hmm. So, and also had a backup plan. So when shit goes sideways, like
you have to pivot, and I think in this day and age, you can. Like back in the day, it was kind of like you picked a career and you had to stick with that career or, change to a really other boring career.
Well, since the beginning of time, you did what your father did, right? So and I think there's some beauty in that as well, is like perfecting something that, I've liked to try to do everything, and, I've liked to experience different things, find out what I like, but there is a beauty to doing one thing that you love your whole life and mastering that to the next level where you are in the very elite of that. And so, and that stuff takes time, but also it can be a combination of different things that lead you there. Like,
Yeah, I think the plants led me to understanding soil and vegetables and growing. And then that would be my gift to my son would be like, hey man, like I remember when Henry was, I think about 4 years old, his nephew was in town, or my nephew was in town. The kid's like 11 years old. Yeah. And Henry's in the garden, like pulling things out and showing this kid, like, this is how carrots grow. And the guy's like, carrot, and he's like, they came inside and the kid was like, I thought all this stuff just came from the grocery store.
And
I was like, that's cool that my little kid is showing you what's underground, like he knew what the leaf looked like to pull the carrot, he didn't get to see a carrot.
Yeah.
So I think that's the gift.
Yeah. It's going to be really amazing to see what the kids of these, like your kids and my friends' kids, I don't have kids, but these kids and the things that they do, my nieces and nephews, like the things that they're doing and the things that, as young adults, and then as your kid, is he's going to grow up in a whole different world, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
And, and all of it is beautiful. Like everything in life is beautiful from the right angle. Mm-hmm. Well, not everything, but a lot of stuff, there's the good and the dark, but a lot of the stuff that we think is bad is necessarily not bad. And it's,
Yeah, it's funny. Like my kid has kind of like a bad taste in his mouth about America right now. He's like, I don't know. Like, he's like, why is all this crap going on? And we actually went to Europe over like after Christmas break.
Yeah.
And so he got to see both sides. And he's still like, all right, when we move to Europe,
Yeah.
Which, I mean, with cannabis now.
Barcelona.
I was going to say, here we go.
Oh, man, the food is good over there.
I know.
You got to go to Cannabis. It's the one.
I was going to go the year everybody got COVID and had to spend a little extra time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I definitely need to get over there and do that.
Yeah, it's a fun trip.
For sure.
So yeah, if somebody's looking to find out more information about you, they want to hit you up, where would they go?
Man, so I keep my Facebook stuff kind of at this point. Like if I don't know you, I'm probably not adding you too much.
My Facebook is private. I don't really
my Facebook's kind of turned into like family stuff and stuff like that. But at Brooksy's Buds, BROOKSIE Buds.
Yeah.
That'll kind of show you what I'm up to. That's pretty much it, man. Like I'm kind of at that edge of the generations that like I'm a private person, I don't have to show off everything all the time. But I do want to get caught up on, Patreon and Discords and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And like even some Reddit stuff and stuff like that. But
are you going to be selling your seeds in the future? I think there's a lot of people interested in the breeding that you're doing.
Yeah. We have one ready to go right now. We're calling it Make America Grape Again. And it's basically, we reversed our favorite grape drink. It's a strain in Colorado. It's
Hilarious.
It's great, dude. It tastes like the purple barrel grape drink from Walmart. But I got that on Gary and I got that on all the currents. So
Nice.
they're FEMs. So it would be an easy thing to release. And I'm already moving past that. So I would like to get that one out there and a couple others.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we didn't really bring up our friend Leland. You introduced me to Leland.
Love Leland.
Yeah, dude. Big shout out to Leland.
Leland, you're the man.
Thanks for the newts. I really appreciate everything. I think he's doing some cool breeding stuff too.
Dude, his truth serum. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We'll get, I'm sure Leland will send you some seeds.
He appreciates good genetics. He appreciates good flower. So big shout out to Leland. We got to get you on the show. You were supposed to bring a hat for me from Leland.
Yeah, he gave me 3 jars of weed that were grown with Front Row.
Yeah,
but I got nervous at the last minute going through TSA, and I left him at home. I was like, Yeah. But no, he never gave me any swag. So he said he's got swag for you. Yep.
Front Row.
We'll get you all hooked up. They have those dope work shirts. The new.
No, I haven't seen them.
Slick work shirts, like the ag shirts.
Yeah, cool. They crush. There's a handful. I'm not set on just one nutrient line as far as for salts, but I think they do a good job. There's a handful of other guys that do as well.
What I appreciate. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just really like the fact that the people that work there give a shit too, and are about the plant.
Yep.
And about making the plant the best expression it can be.
Yep.
And their customer service is really good too.
That's what I was gonna say, man. Like they're real like heads growing the plants that they spend a lot of money to put people out there in your grow to figure out what's going on and how they can fix it, or if it's a problem with their product, which they did have a couple run-ins in the beginning, like everybody does.
Their part B, it
was like a micronization. It was like a hammer mill. It was like literally a hammer mill that was screwing up the whole thing.
Yeah,
so
pretty wild, but it's still a good. Yeah, they fixed it. Yeah, that's what happens with everything.
Man, no, everybody I put on Front Row, like I still got a bunch of homies in Colorado that are just home growers, and they're like, "Oh man, living soil's fine, but keep the dirty dirt outside,"
Yeah.
And I put them on Front Row, and they're just like, "Dude, like so impressed," and their plants look amazing, and
they smoke really well.
They smoke really great. Yeah. I can't hate on Front Row. My buddy Stacy up at Harvest House in Netherlands has been growing the Front Row, and I just got some Gary Payton and some Alpine Guava from him. Phenomenal. He's actually got his 72-year-old mom helping. So shout out to OG, old grandma. But
Nice.
she's growing some fire with the Front Row, man. That stuff grows great weed. So, and it's very simple.
It's super easy to use. It's one of the easier nutrient lines to actually use and execute flawlessly.
100%. Yeah. So. It's kind of like, you just got to know how to make some really good Kool-Aid and you're there, dude.
Yeah.
It's that simple. So.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, and you can use it in line too.
Yeah, I love Leland, man. I got to work with Leland over at a spot, and I met him in Boulder at a grow, and he used to breed lizards and stuff. Like this guy, there's so much to Leland. He's awesome. I love that dude. Yeah, and he's actually my neighbor. He just bought a house right next to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right around the corner.
Well, man, it's been great having you on the show today. Thanks for coming on, and we'll have to do this again. I hope you enjoy your time in California.
Thank you so much for having me out, man. And the compound, holy smokes, dude, like mind blown.
Awesome.
It's already put together, but I can see what's going to happen here very shortly, and couldn't be more proud of you, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Have a good one.
Yep.
Good stuff.